The BRICS grouping, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, isn't composed of random nations. Each shares certain commonalities and interests which help form its rationale for collaboration. One goal they all share in common is less dependence on US-led West. Decoupling efforts are motivated by perceptions that existing global institutional structures such as the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development are led primarily by Western powers despite having global reach, often at the expense of developing nations. BRICS nations seek to challenge the status quo by strengthening South-to-South cooperation, increasing collective bargaining power on global platforms, and creating alternative financial institutions such as New Development Bank. Such strategies aim to decouple their economies from Western-dominated financial systems so as to gain greater autonomy and leverage in pursuit of national or collective interests. Yet questions still exist as to whether decoupling can actually happen and what its ramifications would be on global economies. The International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development play vital roles in shaping global economic development. Created under Bretton Woods after World War II, these institutions, led and controlled primarily by Western nations such as United States and European, play major roles. IMF provides financial assistance and advice to member countries experiencing balance of payment problems. World Bank lends money and grants for projects intended to alleviate poverty, while OECD advances policies which enhance economic and social well-being around the globe. However, the BRICS nations have long expressed displeasure with Western dominance within these institutions and organizations, specifically IMF loan conditions that impose austerity measures, which harm developing economies. Borrowers are borrowing money from. Such conditions have led to concerns among these nations that alternative solutions such as New Development Bank could more efficiently meet their economic and developmental requirements. The New Development Bank (NDB) is a multilateral development bank established by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa to serve as an alternative to Western-dominated international financial institutions. Officially inaugurated in Shanghai in 2015, with its primary aim being financial infrastructure and sustainable development projects within BRICS nations as well as in other developing economies. Every member nation contributed equally to the initial capital of this bank, emphasizing its principle of equality. This contrasts sharply with international financial organizations or world banks like IMF or World Bank, where voting rights depend heavily on financial contributions made by member nations, giving wealthier countries undue sway over voting decisions. The New Development Bank is an iconic symbol of BRICS' ambitions to reduce their dependence on Western-dominated institutions and establish a more representative global financial architecture that better suits emerging world order. By pooling their resources and expertise, the nations of BRICS aim to address infrastructure gaps, promote sustainable development initiatives, and contribute to developing economies' economic development. Yet, its success hinges on member nations being able to navigate complex geopolitical dynamics while upholding collective commitment toward its goals. BRICS nations share an overarching goal to recalibrate global economic order and lessen dependence on Western-dominated institutions, given that existing global structures often favor Western interests over providing adequate responses to needs and aspirations of emerging economies. Collective interest is crucial for the functioning and cohesion of BRICS as an international grouping, serving as a basis for collaboration among members, setting its strategic agenda as well as driving their efforts in creating alternative financial institutions such as New Development Bank or advocating for reform of global governance structures. Realizing this core interest can be an enormously complex and time-consuming challenge. It requires not only economic and political will from each of the BRICS nations, but also an understanding of a vision they want to implement for a new global order they wish to form. Doing this involves managing differences among nations as well as maintaining balance between individual aspirations and collective goals. Otherwise, this core interest would collapse under strain, rendering its members incapable of making an impactful statement globally. Geopolitics play an integral part in international relations and alliances, often shaping or even overshadowing collective bodies like BRICS. While its member nations share an objective of decreasing dependence on Western-dominated institutions, individual national interests or geopolitical realities may sometimes override that shared goal. The BRICS nations each possess their own geopolitical realities, with their influence expanding as their national interests diversify further. While all members attempt to strengthen their global positions through strengthening territorial disputes or economic policies, disagreements among themselves or with other nations often occur over matters related to alliances or territorial claims that create strain within groups as a whole and create obstacles towards attaining common goals. Geopolitical landscape is always shifting. Changes to governments, shifting power dynamics, or emerging global threats all impact priorities and interests of each BRICS nation. India and China's relationship in BRICS is complex and challenging, marked by competition and an uneven power balance which threatens its cohesion. India is especially worried by China's infrastructure projects in countries close to them, like Sri Lanka and Pakistan, which have proven problematic for India's national interest. China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), comprising an ambitious network of infrastructure projects across the globe, has caused concern in India. Projects like China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC), which passes through disputed Indian claimed lands, and development of strategic ports in Sri Lanka, has further raised alarm. Such developments accentuate China's presence within India's immediate neighborhood and raise further fears. As concerns over China's rising power and influence grow, these anxieties often manifest themselves within BRICS dynamics. India may seek to curb China's dominance within the group while simultaneously being wary of initiatives which might strengthen Beijing's geopolitical leverage. Such power dynamics could undermine cooperation within BRICS as an instrument for collective action and limit its overall potential as an action platform. The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, commonly referred to as Quad, is an informal strategic forum composed of representatives of 4 nations: United States, Japan, Australia, and India. Recently, it has gained in prominence due to China's increasing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. India's involvement in the Quad marks its strategic maneuver to counterbalance China's power in Asia. By aligning itself with other major democratic powers and creating multipolarity across Asia, India seeks to ensure its own regional security while keeping multipolarism intact. Something especially essential in light of China's aggressive foreign policy and increasing influence in India's neighboring nations. However, India's participation in the Quad presents an unusual challenge to BRICS groupings. On one hand, India belongs to an alliance meant to disengage from US influence, BRICS, but at the same time is part of one that includes it, the Quad. Such complex geopolitical positioning reflects India's efforts at managing delicate balance of power in its region. Cooperation between India and China is key for the success of BRICS. They account for roughly 90% of population and 80% of economic output within this grouping, so their relationship has an immense bearing on its viability and efficacy. Historical tensions, territorial disputes, and competition for regional influence present significant hurdles to India to China cooperation. China's ambitious infrastructure projects in India's neighboring nations has caused alarm at New Delhi. Beijing looks upon India's growing strategic links with America and other Western powers with suspicion. Geopolitical divisions between India and China could pose serious threats to BRICS. If these geopolitical rivalries prevent India and China cooperation within BRICS, this could significantly hinder their ability to meet their shared goals. For instance, by impeding functioning institutions backed by the group, such as New Development Bank, or restricting influence over global economic governance, or diminish its efficacy as a platform for South-South cooperation. As an umbrella organization, BRICS could collapse due to inability of India and China to align their interests and collaborate. Therefore, its success depends on both countries managing differences within their group effectively while finding common ground amongst members. As the BRICS nations maneuver the complex web of global geopolitics, questions over their ability to meet their collective goals remain. Representing a significant portion of both population and economy worldwide, these countries possess immense power to change global order. But realizing such potential rests upon maintaining unity between members while reconciling divergent interests. Geopolitical rivalries between India and China present significant threats to BRICS cohesion. If tensions escalate further, this could undermine shared interests that unite members, leading to its eventual breakdown. Adding further complications are complex dynamics within BRICS itself, such as each nation's relationships with Western powers, as well as regional concerns, which complicate collective ambitions of its member nations. Yet, despite these difficulties, BRICS nations have shown that they can work together on shared interests, like creating the New Development Bank, showing they could achieve great strides toward meeting collective goals with sustained dedication and careful negotiation of differences. Thus, BRICS provides an intriguing look into global power dynamics as well as multinational cooperation dynamics.